Okay, so we will go ahead and get started with the webinar this morning. Thanks everyone for joining us. We're here to talk about SBA programs. And before we do that, I'm Nina Rinaldi from the Cape May County Chamber, and I just wanted to quickly go over a few administrative controls for the meeting. If you've been with us before, you might be familiar with these, but we'll be taking your questions two different ways today. You're certainly welcome to place your questions in the text chat as we usually do. You can find the text chat by, if you're on a computer, you can move your mouse. You'll see the chat icon at the bottom of the screen. Or if you're on a smartphone or tablet, you can tap your screen to see the Zoom toolbar and you'll see that chat icon. We also today, at the end of our presenters' remarks, we will be taking your questions on audio, so you'll be able to come on and talk with Sheryl yourself if you prefer to do that. The way that we'll be taking those questions is through using the raise hand feature on Zoom. So if you'd like to come on and talk to our presenter over audio and voice your own question, you'll raise your hand. So the way that you can do that is to find the participants icon in your Zoom toolbar. Same spot at the bottom of your screen on your computer, you'll see an icon that says participants. You can click that and then you'll see a feature that says raise hand. Go ahead and tap raise hand and that will put you in the queue to ask a question. On a smartphone or a tablet, you may have to tap your screen and look for more or three dots to find that participants icon and raise your hand. So I hope that helps, and I hope that you all get a lot out of the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Vicki Clark, our Chamber President.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to be with you again today. It's like our daily coffee hour, and really thrilled today to have Sheryl Paynter with us. Some of you may remember Sheryl. She's joined us at chamber meetings and updated us on SBA programs in the past, but it's been a couple of years. So Sheryl, very nice to have you with us here today. Sheryl is the lead lender of relation specialist and lead economic development specialist for the New Jersey office of the Small Business Administration. Sheryl also she and her husband have a family business on LBI. So she certainly comes to us this morning to talk about the PPP program with a personal perspective. So Sheryl, thank you again for being with us today and bringing this information to us very timely as we're into this new week of funding for the PPP program. Look forward to what you have to share with us, and I'm glad to turn the program over to you.
Sure, sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, I think what I was thinking about how to just make sure we're all on the same page, and then what I'll do is open it up for questions after. I'm going to do a short presentation. I'm just going to go through the slides quickly. I believe most people know the basic parameters of PPP and the economic injury disaster loans, which we call EIDL, but I also know there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I'm just going to quickly go through the presentation, and then I'm going to tell you some updates that have occurred since the basic parameters have been released, and then an anecdote as to some questions that I've been getting from people, and then we'll open it up for questions, and we'll have plenty of time. So let me do the share screen first and bring up the presentation, which hopefully you can all see. Yeah? Okay, good. I got a thumbs up from Nina.
Yep.
Okay, so here we go. So the PPP overview, at this point, the funds can be used to pay up to 8 weeks of payroll costs, including benefits. And benefits are health care, retirement, the overhead of benefits that go to an employee. And these benefits are generally calculated if you have a payroll processing company. you would need to go and have them run a report for you that you can submit. And the funds can also be used to pay interest on mortgages, rent, and utilities. And this is where it gets sticky. So you really need to make sure that 75% of this PPP loan is utilized for payroll costs. And you want to do that to ensure that it gets forgiven. And if you have less than 75%, we're being told, but we haven't gotten the official guidance yet, that it would be that amount. So for example, if 60% of your PPP loan goes towards payroll, and you didn't hit that 75% threshold to get it all forgiven, you would get 60% of that forgiven. And the rest would become in part of a loan. And the loan maturity would be a 2-year loan at 1%. And these are the basic terms of the PPP loan. No personal guarantee. The program is available through June 30th. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some nuances that were made to the program. But this is how it will be forgiven. We just talked about who is eligible. So small businesses, nonprofit that have a element that is a profit-based business. The only exception to that are faith-based businesses such as churches or synagogues, which are operating to provide public assistance in this time. All of this information can be found on either treasury.gov or it can be found on the SBA.gov's website. When you click on both of those, it gives you a link straight to the COVID information. And why is this important? It's important because there is a frequently asked question, and every day I go into frequently asked questions because there's the basic rule, which I'm talking about now, and then there's the additional guidance that has been released based on questions from the public and from lenders that want things clarified. And that's really where you heard on the news a few days ago that certain hospitals are now eligible for PPP. Well, where is that guidance? That guidance is at treasury.gov. So when you hear something in the news and you're like, wow, that sounds really interesting, I'd like more information, go to treasury.gov and click on frequently asked questions about PPP, because that's where the actual factual guidance is contained, and that's where you can be sure to get correct information and not just somebody's interpretation of the information. I spend a lot of my time clarifying things for both lenders and the public on what they heard, but this is where you really can get it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and make sure you're getting the correct information. Let me just talk about that. All right. What counts as payroll? And again, if you go to the treasury.gov and you have any questions on payroll, click where the interim final rule is, and you can see if any of this is not contained. What counts as payroll for sole proprietors and independent contractors? This was a biggie. A business that operates with employees, but also have contractors that are paid from a 1099. Those employees that are paid with a 1099, they're included in the qualification of what makes you a small business. However, they are subtracted when it comes to the actual loan for PPP. And that's because people that qualify with a 1099, they can apply for PPP themselves and they can receive money themselves for the work. And it's just so that there's not double counting. On to the economic injury disaster loans. Currently, the website is down, and I checked it again. It's not anticipated to come up in the short term. What's happening right now is the SBA is going through applications, and they are allocating money, and then an individual has 30 days to accept that loan or not. If they don't accept it, or they accept it for a lesser amount, the money goes back into the pot. So they're holding off right now on new applications, not for the 30 days, but just until they get the pot back up to where they feel that they can take more applications. So just because the lender portal is closed doesn't mean that people can't in the future apply for an EIDL loan or advance. Let's see. And what businesses are eligible to apply? I've gotten a lot of questions on the word cooperative. I want to make sure people know that this is an agricultural cooperative. Residential cooperatives are not a business entity. It's more of a residential entity. And as a result, they are not eligible under SBA standards to apply for this PPP. So I've been getting a lot of questions on the word cooperative, and you need to put agricultural in front of it for it to qualify for a small business, either PPP or economic injury. Let's see. How much can you borrow for the economic injury? Up to $2 million. Let's see. The EIDL advance entity, how can I use it? It can be used to pay fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, and other bills. And there's no requirement to repay the advance. And that's really important. So it's up to $10,000. Originally, it was intended to be $10,000, but the amount of inquiries outpaced, as we know, the deluge. So what's happening now is businesses are given $1,000 per employee up to the $10,000. So if you have 8 employees, you would receive an advance of $8,000. It's just a way to help even out the giving of the funds to everybody that they can. And let's see, the working capital loans are different from other SBA loans. They come directly from the Treasury. Regular SBA loans are guaranteed from a lender, and they come from the lender, but these economic injury loans are coming directly from Treasury. And these are not through a lender, such as the PPP loans. People have been a little confused. The EIDL loans are directly from the SBA, where the PPP loans come from lenders. And ineligible entities. So other than the agricultural cooperatives, other agricultural enterprises are not eligible, and the USDA is set up more to handle other agricultural enterprises. And just a reminder, for marijuana-based businesses, at a federal level, it is still considered illegal. So as a result, marijuana-based businesses are not eligible for either PPP or the EIDL loans. This businesses whose purpose is for gambling, this has actually been changed. In the EIDL loan, they are not eligible, but however, for the PPP, again, if you go to treasury.gov and you have a small casino, you could be eligible for a PPP loan. Just go to the frequently asked questions, and you would do a search on the document. It's a Word document, and you could find the qualifications to qualify. And how to apply. So I want to really remind people about resource partners. SCORE, the Small Business Development Centers, the Women Business Centers, and the Veteran Business Outreach Centers are all equipped to assist you with business counseling. In addition, both the Women Business Centers and the Small Business Development Centers have actually been contracted with the state to help people fill out applications. So if you are getting frustrated and overwhelmed on how to fill out an application, you could always go to one of these entities. Also, the African American Chamber of Commerce has been contracted to help people fill out applications as well. All right, and that's kind of the basic presentation I was going to present today. I want to bring up seasonal businesses. I went on the treasury.gov website just to make sure it was there, but the SBA employees, we were given information for seasonal businesses that it was considered discriminatory to make sure that the pay period being utilized was February 15th and ending somewhere in June 30th, like picking the monthly average payments during that payroll period. Those that have a seasonal business that operates during the summer were completely getting locked out of PPP loans because all of the money and all of the employees are done during the summer. So what they've decided was to change this, that any 12-week period, and let me just get the exact, here it is. Its maximum loan amount can be utilized for the average totally monthly payments during any consecutive 12-week period between May 1st, 2019 and September 15th, 2019. Therefore, if you have a summer business, I know my husband and I, he has a summer business, so we actually opted to use June 15th through September 7th. And that 12-week period, helps us qualify for a PPP loan. So if you have that, same thing, you can go to your lender, and if your lender has no clue what you're talking about, you could always send them the link on the treasury.gov website and explain to them that you do qualify for a PPP loan. The other thing I want to mention is I've gotten a lot of frustrated people that they went to the wrong lender, and I put that in quotes because it's not the wrong lender, it's just that they're not able to get their PPP loan done through a lender. Not all lenders are created equal as far as processing these loans. Some lenders, they're not usually SBA lenders, and they're getting bogged down by the process. Some lenders don't have the technology in place in order to speed up processing. And what I mean by that is more sophisticated lenders have actually contracted with third parties, and they're already SBA lenders, and they know how to upload like batch processing. And actually during the PPP in the first go around, some lenders actually put like 15,000 applications through with a click of a button. And that's not, actually I'm going to stop sharing. And, it was obviously not fair to everybody. We've had a few lenders that really jumped to the front of the line. So what's happening now is actually effective yesterday, you can't even use like robot type technology that uploads this system. The other thing is if you do batch processing, they're able to upload up to 5,000 applications at a time. However, they get processed one by one. And for the larger lenders, they actually, when they hit 340 loan submissions an hour, they get timed out, and the next hour they can put 340 more applications in. So the other safeguard they're doing is that smaller banks have like 10 billion more dollars in which they can allocate to small businesses. So it's helping the smaller banks not get locked out of the system, and also just make it a more even playing field for anybody trying to get a loan, whether you go to TD Bank or whether you go to a smaller bank out there. But some people are still having trouble and not getting their loans processed. This time around, it's going to take a lot longer to cap out. The last time, I mean, it was within days. I mean, it just like we were out of the money. But this time, and lenders are frustrated because it's taking them longer, but it's taking them longer because there's these safeguards. So if you haven't heard, it doesn't mean that tomorrow we're going to run out of money. But if you really are frustrated and you feel like you are not getting the service and you don't feel that your loan's going through, you can try another lender. At the end of the day, it's by your social security number. So you're only going to get one PPP loan. So it'll come back and get flagged that you have a loan already in the system. So you don't have to worry about getting a second PPP loan. And also, a lot of the publicly traded companies that got PPP loans in the first go around, they weren't supposed to. They are giving it back. We've actually gotten back 10% already from the first round with, like, you've heard Ruth's Chris or Shake Shack, Potbelly, like a lot of these big entities that weren't supposed to get the funding are putting them back. And the SBA is going to be auditing anyone that got over $2 million in PPP funding. So that's good. It's keeping things, on a fair playing field. I also want to just throw out there are lending online platforms that you don't even have to utilize through a bank. And I'm not going to, I don't endorse anybody, but I know that PayPal is now accepting PPP applications. I know PursuitLending.com, they actually are collaborating with Goldman Sachs to accept PPP loans. I saw Cabbage, and that's with a K. They're now accepting PPP loans. So if you really don't feel like you're getting the response, again, you might just be in the queue and they haven't gotten to you yet. But if you feel that you need to put in another application, go ahead and do that through either a lender or an online platform, because at the end of the day, it is going to run out of money. I don't know when, and I hope a lot more small businesses, New Jersey in general, got a very low amount of the first time go around. It was disheartening, and safeguards are put in place to ensure that we do get more money, but at the end of the day, until we see the numbers, we don't know if we do get more money as a state. And certainly, I did poll numbers for last time in the Cape May County area, and not a lot of businesses got a lot of the PPP in the first round. So I know this is very important to people to get it in the second round. So let's just cross our fingers on that, because there's nothing I can do. But what I'm going to do now is see if anyone has any questions. And I'm fine with however you want to ask your question. If you want to raise your hand, you can either or chat. You know, I don't really care whatever works for you.
We do have quite a few questions in the chat already, so we'll start with that, and then people can raise their hands and we'll intermix them. The first question is from Donna, and she says, do we know how full-time equivalent is defined for the headcount calculation? They're an owner of health and retirement, were excluded in a recent IFR. Will that change? Most people applied prior to the change and included it.
Okay, hold on. Wait a minute, because I can read the question. Let me just go back to it. There we go. Owner, health, and retirement was excluded. So actually, I think the question is, most people applied prior to the change and excluded it, is I think what you're trying to say, Donna. It was excluded before, and it is now, you're able to put it in. If you go to the IFR, owner, health, and retirement excluded. Oh, I see. So now you can include that, and as a result, if you go to your lender, and what the lender's doing, because of the volume, is the borrower is certifying what they qualify for. So if you put in something, that's what they're going on. Now, if you have to change an amount, either less or more, based on guidance, what you're going to want to do is they have to have that revised borrower certification form, because that's what they're utilizing, and that actually safeguards them from potential fraud. So if somebody has incorrectly filled out an application and there's an audit, it's the borrower that's on the hook, not the lender. So the lender's going to make no changes until they have a revised borrower certification form. And many lenders want a full application, you know, the four, like the PPP application, as well as the borrower certification form. So my recommendation is put the new amount that you're supposed to get in a new application and forward it to your lender. The lender has the ability in E-Tran to click edit and change the amount. I can't guarantee they're going to do it immediately, but they do have the ability to change an amount. It's not ground in stone just because that's what you were given. And I will say that for myself, as a seasonal business, I was able to get the amount changed because of the new seasonal business calculations. So it can get done. But as a result, I had to give them a brand new PPP plus borrower certification, because it puts me on the hook. That I'm, plus I also had to give them the new payroll information and show them, so that they had documentation that the loan was being done properly. So I'm looking here. I'm a small seasonal juice bar. Right now I have no employees. Is this a loan risk? So it is a loan risk, in the sense of if you, just because you qualify for 10 employees, it's up to you how much you certify for. So if you are going for 10 employees and you don't utilize 75% of the amount you receive for those 10 employees, then it's going to become a loan. But if you want, you could always ask for 3 employees worth for the PPP. And you're right, there is a risk. It's really depends on what you think your business is going to be. And you can always pay the money back that you don't use. So if you get 10 people and you only use 30% of it for 3 employees, you could always just pay back the other 70% that you didn't utilize for the other 7 that you expected, and then the 3 employees would get forgiven. So it's a calculated risk, and as long as you don't spend the money, otherwise, you could just pay it back. All right. What exactly is included in payroll? So there is a lot of different guidance on frequently asked questions. I don't have the, let's see, I do have, hold on. Lenders must confirm. So, and literally this frequently asked questions, there's a lot of different definitions on each thing that you're mentioning, whether it's wages or payroll. And it's literally 12 pages worth, and I'm looking here, it says frequently asked questions. You really need to read the exact wording. Otherwise, I would just be sitting here and going through the definitions. But go to treasury.gov and you will find the exact verbiage.
Okay. So Cheryl, we do have 2 people that have raised their hand. Can we go to a raised hand question?
So our first raised hand question comes from Teresa. Teresa, you should be unmuted. Go ahead. Teresa, if you're there, we'd be happy to take your question. I'll give you a few more seconds to jump in. Okay, maybe Teresa stepped away. So we'll go to Donna Stillwell with your hand raised. You should be unmuted now. Go ahead, Donna.
Hi, thank you everybody for your time today. Cheryl, we have a couple questions. We've been doing some webinars here, and one of the questions asked all the time is, what is the full-time equivalent? So the Affordable Care Act says a full-time employee is 30 hours, and we've been going off of that measurement. Is that correct? Because the full-time employee is not defined in the act. How many hours is a full-time employee? An equivalent.
You're right. It hasn't yet come out on the exact definition. So stay tuned in frequently asked questions, and you will hopefully see that definition soon.
Okay, I have another question. So part of it is, so you have to spend 75% on payroll, but there's also something that says you cannot reduce employee salary by 25%. So when they are looking at the forgiveness, are they going to be looking at 75% in total you spent on payroll? Or, for example, if you have employees that did not return to work because they're making more on unemployment and you had to replace them with somebody else, is that going to count against you? We're kind of unclear on what that.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to replace the employee with the same employee. You can replace it with a different employee. If people aren't coming back to work because they're making more for unemployment, it's up to you what you want to do. I mean, some people are reporting them. Other people are just saying, whatever, and they're just getting another employee. It doesn't have to be replaced with the same employee.
Our governor said he's not going to go by that rule. So if they want to stay home, they can, which is ridiculous.
Okay, I can't comment on the state. Okay. All right. Anyone else?
Looks like we have one hand raised from Concord Suites. You should be unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Michael from the Concord Suites. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
At this time, is there money still in the PPP?
Yes, yes.
There is.
There is definitely, yeah, absolutely. And
Okay.
there,
How long
it's
can we
just,
expect?
go ahead.
How long can we expect this process to take? I read on some of the comments that they, put their application in on the 7th and basically get confirmation on the 28th of April.
Well, I think what you're referring to is, it's when it went to the lender. So the lender has their own queue. So I don't know if you're fifth in the queue for the lender or if you're 10,000 in the queue for the lender.
Right.
The lender's working through their queue, and some lenders are able to process more quickly than others. The SBA is trying to speed it up for everybody without having people game the system. This is going to be a much slower process. It's not going to be like, oh my God, 3 days, we're out of money. And the reason being is this is a slower, methodical process. It's intended to make sure that there's no more gaming of the system and no more flooding, of a few lenders getting all of the money. And if you weren't one of the lucky people to have your loan application with that lender, you were out of luck. And so this time around, try to be patient. It's not going to be out tomorrow. It's really methodically, and we're getting lenders very frustrated with us because they are being timed out for an hour because they've submitted too many applications, within the hour. Yeah. But it's intended to be fair.
Will this be retroactive from the time of your application? And going on with what you said with the seasonal businesses, can you change your application midstream to include the summer months as criteria for the PPP?
Yes, you can. If you submitted something to a lender and now you're like, wow, I qualify for 4 times that amount because now seasonal businesses have a whole different methodology. Refill out both your PPP application and your borrower certification application and get that to that lender immediately.
And you said they can edit it midstream.
What I'm saying is midstream is they'll just take your application. But let's say you're a business that already got notification from their lender, and I'm just going to put $5,000 that you qualified for $5,000 under the original criteria, and you're a seasonal business, and you're like, oh my God, now that I can use information that I have here is an
Either I lost you or.
Yeah, I think it looks like maybe Sheryl might be having some technical difficulties. Let's give her a second and see if she can come back into the room. And hang on, I'll see if I can reach her. Thank you for your questions, Michael.
Oh, we've lost her completely, I think.
Yeah, if she's having internet issues on her side, she may. Let's hope she can come back in within a minute or so, and I'm gonna see if I can get her on the phone. Hang on.
Okay. While she is doing that, can we, let's see, can we unmute? I have unmuted Joe Molyneux. Joe is with us, and Joe has been brought on by the County of Cape May. Joe is a familiar person to many here in Cape May County. And I'd like to introduce Joe. Joe, tell us about what you're doing here for the folks in Cape May County.
Right. First off, just because I have a second to do so, I want to thank Vicki, John, Nina. These events have been awesome, bringing the caliber of people into the county through Zoom, and the sessions have been invaluable. We're learning something every day. Sheryl and I have a strong history of working together. I used to be the director of the Small Business Development Center for Atlantic, Cape May, and Cumberland County. I did that for 15 years solid. I did a lot of lending and a lot of support and a lot of technical support. So the county reached out to me and asked me to take a role as a consultant with the recovery and reopening strategies to help businesses. So that includes a lot of Q&A. The phone's been ringing. I'm going to give you a phone number, and also, Nina, either I can post or you can post my email address, if you would, in the comments for people. That'd be great. It's a complementary system to what Sheryl just talked about. You know, you do have resources like SCORE and SBDC, which I'm familiar with, but the calls have been coming in, and the best part about this is you're going to have a local voice, someone that knows the area, that lives, you know, within the region. I play in Cape May County, but I just happen to live, you know, one town up into Cape May, Atlantic County. But I spend a lot of time down there, and I still spend a lot of time out there. I know many of you, I see a lot of familiar faces. The answers that I'll give you to your questions will be realistic. We'll work on strategies. I had a great call from a hair salon yesterday, who I encouraged to come on the phone call today with the chamber, that received some EIDL grant money. It came in without an email, without any kind of documentation, just went right to her account, which was great. She called it a godsend. That was actually her term. And I think we're going to hear a lot of that and see a lot of that. I was so encouraged to see that not only are the bigger companies giving the money back, we kind of know how that occurred because they were claiming their sites were smaller, under 500 employees, but a lot of them had well over 500 employees. And then the fact that that money's coming back in to be reloaned out, it is great to hear all those safeguards. I understood about the batching, but I didn't realize it was happening at 15,000 loans at a time. I like the 340, even for the larger banks. Don't forget all those smaller entities that everybody's mentioning, the CDFIs, the CDCs, the non-traditional lenders. And I love the idea that you're not going to be penalized if you're putting in more than one application. We have to be diligent. I'm willing to help you with any strategies, not only today's strategies, but also the reopening strategies. We've been working on with people on that. And like I said, I'm just a phone call away. So I'll give you my phone number now that you can write down. The direct line that'll ring to me, but then I'll also have the email. Either I can post the email or Nina can post the email. Let me give you the phone number, 609-465-1085. That'll ring directly to me. If I'm on the other line, just please leave a message and you will get a call back. If you want to email me your direct questions or your concerns, that's fine too. Vicki, again, I can't thank you enough for doing these. It is like morning coffee with you, which I like, in the team. But the great thing about it is I know it's making a real difference, because the best thing we can do is provide information, realistic suggestions, a little bit of guidance. And yeah, that's where I am. If anybody has any questions, I mean, I'm not going to answer the SBA questions or any of the direct lending questions. That would be directed to Sheryl. But if anybody has anything else I can help them with, I'd be happy to.
And great news, I believe that we have Sheryl back, who has dialed in on the phone. Sheryl, are you with us?
I am. I don't know what happened. I wasn't even touching anything. It just like left.
That's great.
Like, what just
No
happened?
worries.
Sorry
The internet certainly can have a mind of its own. So if it's okay with you, we can jump back into questions.
Yeah, sure. So I think the question was if you had already submitted an application, and I was talking about resubmitting to your lender. If you've already gotten notification that you were approved and you realize with this new criteria that you qualify for more, the lender does have the ability to go in and click edit and change the amount. So, you know, you're not precluded from that. So I want to make sure people know that, because that's going to be, I've gotten a lot of those questions this morning. So I guess the next question.
Okay, because we are recording this, I think we do need to, in the chat, we do need to read the questions in full. So I'm going to jump down because we answered a couple of these questions that are in the chat, kind of not directly the exact question, but the gist of the question by a couple of others that have been asked. So I'm going to jump down to the drive-by WSI question, which says, my bank PNC has made a decision to not accept any new PPP applications due to a backlog of priority applicants. Is this the standard for most SBA lenders? It's quite frustrating to hear that my own bank is not accepting any new PPP applications, especially with the second round of funding just now available this week.
I think two things are at play. One is the lenders are overwhelmed, and I think that if the lenders took on every business that wanted a PPP loan, they wouldn't be able to go through the backlog that they have. It's a double-edged sword for them, because if they accept everybody's application, then they're seen as the good guy. But then on the flip side, if they don't process that application on a timely basis so that that business gets money, then they've given that applicant false hope that they are going to get their application processed. But then the other side of it is, if they make the business decision to just not accept any more loan applications than what they already have, and however they decide to accept the applications in the first place, is definitely on an individual basis. Some are making it to priority clients, some are making it to people that have a business checking account, some are making it open to all. But at the end of the day, we need to remember that the banks are processing. They wound up processing. It was 14 days actually. They processed the amount that the SBA has processed in 14 years. So it is unprecedented, the loan volume level that these lenders are trying to push through the system. So I'm not saying that it's right or it's wrong on what they're doing, but the reality is that they might be doing you a service by not taking your application than giving you false hope that they are going to take your application, and then you're at the end of the line and they run out of money.
Okay. The next question is from David. Can you please explain how the head count relates to the PPP? I let an employee go prior to the PPP and have replaced that person with a new hire. The person I let go has not yet been able to obtain unemployment insurance and is in a tight spot financially. If I use PPP to bring that person back for a short period of time, can I let him go at any point without penalty?
Can I let him go? I think we're talking about the aggregate amount that is utilized for PPP. It's a dollar amount. So if somebody brings back an employee and has to let them go again, there are criteria that have to do with lending, with keeping people once they're there. So I would look in the frequently asked questions, because I don't want to misspeak, but there is criteria about keeping employees that you bring back.
Okay. Amanda applied for the EIDL on April 8th, called to follow up on April 17th, and was given information that the application turnaround was about 3 weeks, which would be today. Is the 3-week turnaround still holding true? And what type of communication should be expected to see if the application is approved for the advance and/or loan? Should funding still be available?
Okay, so if somebody has applied for an EIDL loan, if they have seen money showing up in their bank account from the SBA, that is an EIDL advance. So that is your indication that you actually are in being processed. If you have an EIDL application in and you haven't received money, it means that you are in the queue for processing. You aren't guaranteed for getting money, but you are in the queue to receive money and have a good chance of receiving that money. As far as communication on your status of your particular status, there is no current way. Even if you call customer service, the only thing they can tell you is that your loan is in the system. They can't tell you the status of when it's going to be dispersed. The SBA is currently creating an online system that people can click on their status of where they are, but it hasn't yet been released. I know that's really frustrating, but 3 weeks has come and gone for processing of these loans. Again, the volume is absolutely unprecedented, so it's going to take more than 3 weeks. I know people that applied, in the first, days when the EIDL loans were released, and they haven't yet received information. The SBA is hiring loan processors to help go through this crazy backlog. So just be patient, and hopefully you'll see an online status coming out in which you can put in your information and see where you are in the process.
Okay. One more question in the chat, and then we have a couple of raised hands I want to get to as well. We are classified as an essential business and just received our PPP. How do we handle those employees on unemployment that have a position that requires them to be physically in the office that are too scared to come back to work so that we get our loan forgiven?
I don't have an answer to that question. If you have to replace employees with employees that are willing to come to work, then that's a business decision. I can't advise a business on how to force people to come back to work. That's
Okay.
kind of out of my purview.
That may be an unemployment office question too as well. All right, let's go to, we have a couple of raised hands, and I think one of them needs a clarification, maybe either on the question or on the answer. Nina, can we go to the raised hands?
Sure. So we have Tim from WSI. You should be unmuted, Tim. Go ahead.
Okay. Actually, my question was asked. Vicki had posed that question already to Sheryl.
Okay.
Which I think I got the only other follow-up question I had to that, which I appreciate being asked, is what Sheryl had mentioned about alternative sources, perhaps for lending on PPP, and maybe that's the answer that she's going to offer here. But that would have been my follow-up question. Or my current bank is not accepting anything new from a PPP standpoint. What are the other alternatives that she might suggest?
Yeah, I think I've already answered that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next raised hand.
All righty. We have Donna Stillwell. Donna, go ahead.
Good afternoon again. Good morning. I guess it's still morning. So incurred and paid in the PPP forgiveness language, can you kind of clarify what that means when you're calculating the forgiveness. So I'm an accountant, so I understand incurred, but you have 8 weeks from the time you receive your PPP money, right? So
Right.
in that 8 weeks, you would have made a payment for a payroll that where you did not incur the expense because it was incurred in the period prior to you receiving the funds. But then the expense that you incurred for payroll is going to occur at the end of that 8-week period, and you're going to be paying it the following week. So I think, you know, from a calculation for calculating the loan forgiveness, can you clarify that? Or, you know, hopefully we're really counting on the SBA and the Treasury Department to provide some guidelines on some of these, some of the language.
Yeah, I think a lot of your questions are highly technical that I'm hearing. I would go to treasury.gov and look up the actual verbiage, and things like that that aren't super clear. Every day, frequently asked questions answers more and more questions. So I think because you're an accounting firm, you know, I'm hearing a lot of very technical questions, which is great. But that's really where you should go into and look at the frequently asked questions and see if they're defining things such as that.
Yeah, we've been looking every day, and we're kind of really hoping to get some more clarity on some of these issues this week.
Yeah,
A lot of our
yeah,
clients
no, I
are
hear
getting
you.
the money, and they're coming to us for these answers. And we've been, as I said, doing webinars. So we're really trying to clarify it so we can help our clients too. So.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Well, hang in there, and hopefully you'll see more clarity, you know, with some of these definitions.
So the next question is that you mentioned new safeguards to level the playing field for smaller banks, but what about small businesses struggling to get funded by their larger banks that seem to be prioritizing larger businesses?
That's certainly disheartening. I know it's happening. I know the SBA is aware it's happening. There's nothing that, you know, at the end of the day, it's the lender that makes the business decision on who to lend to and who not to. And unfortunately, it's true that there are practices that can hurt a business in particular. My suggestion would be just to see how you're being handled, and you know, after this is over, you know, if you don't feel that you were given you know, the business attention that you would have liked, you know, to, you know, consider you know, shopping elsewhere, so to speak. But we can't force a lender to you know, lend to any particular businesses. It's just out of our scope. But the SBA is aware of it, and I think part of trying to ensure that you know, they are looking, you know, at it, but I don't have an answer to how do you force a lender to lend to a smaller business. I wish I did, but I don't have an answer.
Okay, thank you. The next question from Margaret. We need to use the money by June 30th. Will that date be extended?
That is a very good question. That question, because how can you tell a seasonal business that they can qualify for months outside of June 30th when then you're telling them that they have to spend it by June 30th, which doesn't make sense. I'm there currently, there is no answer to that, but that answer, that question has been asked, and we're hoping for additional guidance that addresses that very question.
Okay. From
Because that's the
Teresa.
catch-22.
Okay. I have been approved by Ready Bank and SBA in round 1. I applied on April 13th, but I haven't heard anything for the past 10 days and don't have a phone contact number for Ready Bank. Any suggestions on how to check the status?
Yeah, I think they mean Ready Cap Bank. Yes?
I don't know.
Question mark? Okay. Shoot me an email and I can set up I can send a personal email introduction to somebody that, you can chat with.
Okay. The next question is, my head count is different than full-time employees. Was either or acceptable given total salary was submitted? Not quite sure what that exact question is. Linda might have to ask
Maybe
you to resub. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
I think they're trying to, so it's based on the money amount. So you have to spend on the money amount to get it forgiven. So if you're off by some people, again, it's really the monetary amount that you're being forgiven on.
Okay. The next question from Matt. Can you please clarify how paying 1099 employees affects accounting for PPP funds, specifically paying help for projects already completed but have not been paid yet?
Well, 1099 in general is subtracted from the definition of what you qualify for. So I'm not really sure of the question.
Okay. Let's see. I am an owner of an LLC. Can I include my guaranteed salary based on a K-1 self-employment taxes paid in the amount I apply for?
Yeah, I think it's box 14, I want to say, of your K-1 that you can put in your PPP. If you go to that frequently asked questions and you, one of the questions addresses that exact question. And I think it's box 14 that you would put in of your K-1.
Okay. The next one is, please provide detailed explanation on where I can find clear information about a business that is an LLC partnership with owners that included their guaranteed salary based on a K-1 self-employment taxes paid. Will this part of the PPP be forgiven? Banks are not clear on whether this is part of being forgiven, and I cannot find specific language on this.
It's there. Again, it was a question that early in the PPP process, the lenders did not have clarity on this, but it is definitely one of the frequently asked questions that is addressed specifically on the treasury.gov website.
Okay. Question from Buzz. We would have opened for the season in March. Can my seasonal employees who have not started yet qualify for unemployment until we do open?
My seasonal. Yeah, I mean, I think this is more of a state question, but my understanding is that they can qualify. Well, they can qualify if they can normally qualify for unemployment. I'm going to step aside with that question because I'm a federal employee and I don't answer state questions.
Okay.
Because that's out of my scope.
All right. If you have not applied for the PPP and your bank is not offering PPP applications, where would you look for a loan?
I gave those 3 potential websites. I know there's a lot more, but as I said, I know PayPal, I know PursuitLending.com, and I know Cabbage are all accepting PPP applications.
Okay. Sorry, my page was jumping around a little bit.
No, that's okay.
I lost my place.
Yeah, no, if we could do just maybe 1 or 2, because I do have to get back to my regular job of helping lenders.
Okay. Were there any other raised hands, Nina?
No, Vicky, no raised hands right now.
Okay, so I know I scrolled through. I may have missed a few questions. I apologize to everybody on the webinar if I missed your question. I think we got most of them. And so do you have any other closing comments, Cheryl?
No, just to really hang in there. You are going to see just a different process, as I have mentioned, just a slower process, which is good because it means that more people are getting money because they're trying to keep it more fair. So, you know, I hope the tips that I've given can help you proceed more forward if you are stuck. And just to also make sure you go on the state website to see if any additional grants might come out for small businesses, because that might just happen.
Well, we thank you very much for joining us today and sharing, you know, the valuable information and all the questions that we had today. It's extremely valuable to hear from everybody else because sharing your experience helps everyone else.
Great.
You know, we're in it with you all. I know, you know, the Chamber is one of those organizations as a 501c6 that has not been allowed to apply for the PPP. And we're extremely frustrated. There's other classifications of nonprofit organizations that are like us that are very frustrated with Congress that we haven't even been allowed to apply. So believe me when I say we are in this with you. With that, you know, I thank all of you for joining us. I'd just like to mention that a couple of upcoming programs that we have. On a little bit of a lighter note, tomorrow we're having our first online networking session at 4 o'clock. We invite you to join us for virtual networking. And then next Tuesday at 10 o'clock, we have a short-term rental webinar, Navigating New Jersey's Restrictions on Short-Term Rentals, with Fox Rothschild, the Cape May County Board of Realtors, and Chris Mooney from Surety Title. And then also on Wednesday, May 6th, we are having our digital town hall with our first legislative district team of legislators. So we have, again, a full lineup of informative webinars coming up and a little bit of lighter note, as I said, with some networking. So invite you to join us, stay tuned, and we'll see you again on the web very soon. So thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.